People want to authentically connect. People want to think for themselves. There's this clearly growing need for meaning and for focused, deep work to unrot oneself, to feel as if they could uncover the story themselves rather than being told what to do. There is definitely this growing need of meaning. Me, myself, I've been feeling oddly sick about trying to make catchy thumbnails or titles, although that can be fun sometimes. It feels almost painful to even have hooks, just like the one you just saw. There's clearly a huge market for that, with thumbnails and clickbait and gossip and whatnot. But also, I really do think the meta has changed a lot. I want to create in such a way that I'm completely unbound by the need to capture people, but rather to connect. My own feed, for example, I have some videos now that are very bare bone, have no thumbnail, have no catchy hook or whatever, or create crazy edits, but they provide some of the greatest insight. It can feel kind of exhausting to be constantly immersed and entertained and stimulated if it's not solving some kind of problem in my own life or in your own life. Right? You will see this if you try it too. Just try to spend like 1 hour doing nothing, completely away from stimulation, and everything else starts to feel so much more joyful. Yet, we are unable to escape and maintain that, and we're always back. What brings me back? What brings me back? I ask myself that question a lot. What brings me back? There's a problem in my own life that I'm trying to escape, attempting to not fix and cling to my old habits. I don't know about we, but for me, the reason why I go back to those things, the clickbaits and whatever, comes down to my insecurity about money and freedom, I think. I've just seen over and over and over again how different life looks for my friends who have money and friends who don't have money at this point. And not having money really does hurt. Like, it hurts you a lot. I'm not talking about 1% or whatever. I'm talking about just being able to afford stuff. I think this fixation of wanting attention for me does come down to, in some ways, status and money. And because those things indicate freedom that it can possibly afford you. Like, for example, the issue of friends having to move away for jobs, us having to make slightly unethical decisions because of money, the issue of having to act for money in a corporate setting, that bothers me tremendously. Just think about the conversations and the lies told in your companies and around your managers. 40 years spent slowly deteriorating, doing the same thing, but pretending to like it. So not being able to spend time with your family or your health as much. Your back hurts. It actually really does hurt. Your coworker that's probably talking about some random show that you will never watch. You're going through it. You just cannot fully escape. Yet that kind of corporate culture isn't all that different from the thumbnail culture either. The clickbait culture, the want to get attention, the LinkedIn culture, algorithm culture, the constant recycling of the content. It's all tied to the same status game. But that being said though, being able to make money without having to rely on others or having to go to work, not having to wait for a response back from a job, not having to judge others, that is freedom. Freedom from attention, freedom from status game, freedom from everything. That is what I personally want. That's why I don't want to win people's attention necessarily. I just want that freedom. And nothing is worth more than that sweet nectar of freedom. Once you taste it, you just can't untaste it. That's what we all want, I think. Where do I fully realize it? I think all knowledge has clearly been established in some manner. I'm sure there's always things we could add to the conversation. Doesn't it feel like we're talking about the same things over and over again, but in a different way? The same patterns of news, the same commentary, the same polarity in conversations, the conflicts between the right and the left, the same exact life advice is said in a million different ways. The endless loop of everything, the hundreds of movies constantly being made, the hundreds of videos constantly being made, millions of books, millions of teachers, millions of self-help, on and on the cycle goes. Yet these things are all saying same things in a different manner, in my opinion. And it might be worth the battle to find the nugget. For example, even if I am repeating the same things I've said in other videos, as time goes along, the weight of the word and the meaning behind it kind of changes for me. The way I articulate things changes. Culture and language change and evolve over time. Those are also constantly gonna have to be rewarded for the maximum amount of impact. The new moment of saying the old thing has a beauty to it that can't quite be articulated. It is different in some sense. This is actually kind of how I feel about my friends too sometimes. I have now relived the same joy of getting to deeply know someone and the sadness of letting them go over and over and over again, right? That's kind of how life is after graduation. Then they return, and for a day we relive the same nostalgia, or we simply do not talk for a long ass time. Back and forth, back and forth. The pendulum swims over and over again. You see the same patterns of friends and family exhibited on different people, and you wonder wow, deja vu. This exact same situation has happened to me before. I begin to understand someone and they feel like they're a part of me in some sense. Their very life essence and spirit, their aura, if you will, is transferred to me. No matter how slow or fast I blink, it vanishes eventually. Yet we've had a chance to live together and love each other. There is beauty in that. Something has to come out of that, even if it's repetitive and painful. I think it's nice. For that reason, a new connection is always worth it. I used to sit here and wonder oh, am I going to run out of ideas when I'm writing? No, it has never once happened, because you could always say the same thing in a different way and it changes it. The same experience can be made brand new, completely fresh. It's like I sit here and my aches become articulated very precisely. While I don't want to win your attention, I do feel connected when people respond to me, but only if I actually pour a piece of me in there. Having that connection is the reason why I don't crave getting your attention. In fact, I almost hate it. I want to be fully aware and guarded in my own mindfulness, but that also means I want you to be fully aware and guarded in mindfulness. And in that moment, this interplay where the parts meet the different parts, that's the connection that we feel, I think. I place myself in other people's experiencing mind or empathy. I could usually imagine, or at least try myself to imagine, the suffering that they have been feeling. And I imagine that if they did the same thing back to me, we would have the ability to relinquish the need for attention at any given moment. And at any given moment, we would always feel connected to each other. In that case, we would probably still feel different things at different times, but we would be able to see that the same thing that's happened to me is happened to you. The suffering that I feel when my attention is being grabbed, suffering that's being felt by you when you're trying to focus too, right? For example, I imagine the anger and frustration my friend feels when she messes up a choreo, or the sadness my friend experiences when he gets rejected. They all have that one quality, and they each have the potential to be filled with equanimity and peace. My own hunger right now has that quality as well. Hunger, fear, confusion, greed, the desire to become better, the desire to isolate, the desire to cut off, the sentence that I am better or I am worse. These feelings are innate to nearly every person that I've ever met. Every person I've ever loved has felt this way. And my desire to constantly win attention exploits that. Become bigger, I have become more influential, I have become more powerful. This fuels the divide. It makes people look at you and compare themselves to you and kind of hate you in some sense, but they can't stop looking at you. But I think inspiration and connection is different from that. I think it says, I have overcome, but I am here. It invites people to join you, not exploits them. It shows people your shared struggle and the hope of overcoming it. More importantly though, I think it invites people to pay attention to themselves right here and right now. Paying attention to the well of being open to them in this moment right now. It doesn't hide the negative feelings of guilt and shame. It simply lays everything open and bare, open and free. I think this is where I feel the most connection to people. Compassion, the word compassion, helps us meet people exactly where they are, including myself. In dance, in sports, in meme sending, in reading, in writing, in storytelling. Those are all our methods of connection, and those are all our methods of learning compassion. I think if we prioritize that, probably never ever have to win anyone's attention. It is the ultimate form of charisma, connection. I'm trying to think, are there any digital creators like that? I feel like there are writers and some podcast hosts like that. The ones that do not try to clickbait you or engulf you in such a manner that you keep watching them no matter what. In fact, that's probably not very common because it's kind of bad for the business model, but I know they do exist. One podcaster I could think of is someone like Rich Roll. I feel like he genuinely just wants to understand his guests and help out his audience. It doesn't seem like he's ever trying to go for a sensationalized headline or clickbait, whatever. It's always authentic to him. I also enjoy the work of people like Clarence Kennedy, who's like an Olympic weightlifter. But he's very niche. And Magnus Midvo, who's like a climber, is pretty famous. There's still a very specific group of people that follow him. They always push themselves and they have curated an audience that's like truly connected to them. Their sports are not very large, but they manage. In terms of writing content in YouTube, people like Dan Coe and Alex O'Connor, I think have very authentic audiences as well. They might not be huge. And they do a very good job of explaining very, very hard topics and connecting with people in a direct way. Another channel I recently discovered is called Make Art and Not Content, and there's something unique about this page where it's clearly not trying to win the attention of everyone, but it does because it's so powerfully worded and created. There's something unique that these type of channels offer that I wouldn't say it's like the streamer category. There's also good streamers as well, but they're not constantly trying to get everyone's attention, because at some point that market has to fall, and that market will fall for sure. It's not sustainable to constantly get after other people's attention. This is why I think that living well is the best solution. Honestly expressing myself is the only thing I really want in the end, and that's what other people want as well. Fighting for attention isn't really worth it. Connecting, like truly connecting, is the ultimate form of influence.